Mr. Ambassador, thank you for agreeing to be interviewed by Diplomatic Connections.
Thank you very much.
Very kind of you, especially in this gorgeous setting with this splendid tapestry behind you, which is presumably 17th century?
I think it's 17th century, but it's Belgian, in fact.
Flemish, yes.
Flemish, yeah.
Well, that was part of Spain anyway.
It was, some time ago, though.
Right. How did you become, as it were, ambassador to Washington? Is there a story there? I mean, was it something you've always wanted to do, or were you minding your own business in Khartoum and all of a sudden the phone came?
No, I'm a career diplomat, and I have been tied sometime to the Partido Popular. We call it in Spanish the People's Party. I was, as you probably know, foreign policy advisor to former President Aznar. So once the elections were won by the Socialist Party, I went back to the normal diplomatic life. I became ambassador to South Africa and eventually to Sudan, where I was when the PP won the elections again. And so the team of President Rajoy and the Minister Garcia Margallo called me and asked me if I wanted to be ambassador to Washington. I had been in New York for some time, and I had been working for the German Marshall Fund, so I had some knowledge, and I liked very much this country, so of course I said yes.
So you've been here now since last September?
Since last June.
Since June, right. You presented your credentials
in August,
yes, I see, yes.
Right before the conventions.
Right, and then you got to see both conventions.
I went to see both conventions,
right.
It was an experience.
So therefore you manage essentially bilateral relations, US-Spain affair. What are the components of those relations?
Well, they're multifaceted, as you can imagine. We have a long-standing strategic relations with the US, given the geostrategic position of Spain, both within NATO and in our bilateral relations with the US. We've had very good contacts and relations, and we've had agreements signed. There are a couple of Spanish bases, both by the sea in Rota and another one in Moron, through which we cooperate within NATO
in the 50s.
Those were opened in the 50s. There were many more. There were 5 or 6, but now there are these 2 that are important. They're still there. And in fact, we've just signed an agreement for the establishment of an element of the anti-missile shield defense within NATO in Rota. Mm-hmm. There are going to be 4 naval ships of naval ships of the U.S. Navy established in Rota, and they're going to be working with our military, with our Navy for this anti-missile defense,
shield.
Which is shield, yeah, which is important. But then we have very good economic relations. As you can understand, there's been for many years a lot of American investments in Spain, but more recently there's been lots of Spanish firms that have come to the U.S. after their experience in Latin America, and once our firms became a bit more international than 20 years back, and looking for markets, they found that the U.S. market was very good. There were lots of opportunities. There was something very important. It was the rule of law that worked, and they all came. There's about 300 Spanish firms already installed and investing in the U.S. In many of the states, but they're basically concentrated apart from New York, and in Florida, Texas, and California, and quite a few also in New England. So our economic relations are
including a train.
There's train.
The fast train.
The fast train that's doing the western corridor.
Yes.
But there's also the non-renewables. They're going to be. There's a firm called Abengoa from Seville in Spain that's going to inaugurate in the next coming months the largest solar plant in the world, for solar energy in Arizona.
Right.
So that's important. And then, of course, we have lot of strategic interest in common in other parts of the world, namely Latin America. As you can understand, the interest of Spain and of the US for the stability of Latin America is very important, and we have frequent contacts. Also the north of Africa and the issue of Mali now, so much in vogue. We've also had contacts with the US. So yeah, I tell you, it's multifaceted. Not to forget the cultural dimension of them, given the Spanish, the Spanish culture, which in part we share with the Hispanic community of this nation. So.
Yes, about the Spanish community, I also want to ask a question. But you were, the Spanish forces were in Iraq, but then were withdrawn sensationally with the socialist election. But you are still in Afghanistan?
We are still in Afghanistan, and we'll be there until we all together decide to leave. That will be a collective decision, and we're still there. It's about, if I'm not mistaken, around 1,500, a bit less than 1,500 Spanish soldiers in Afghanistan.
Whereabouts in Afghanistan are they?
They're in a place called Catalan now. It's where is it exactly? It's in the northeastern, northwest. No. It's in the west. It's I don't. Wouldn't
but is it a Taliban-infested area?
It's absolutely Taliban-infested area.
It's an absolutely infested area, right? The other aspect of your presence here, of course, is to deal with this growing Hispanic community, which also I think is something that you're very interested in.
Well, we pay lots of attention to that, and I do personally. I think for Spain is very important. We also, I won't say complain, but we have the impression that sometimes we're not well understood. Spain is not by Americans in general, and we tend to think that Hispanics understand us better than the rest, maybe because their origins come from Spanish-speaking countries, and because, as I was telling you before, we shared part of our culture with them. So for us, it's very important to be present among them and to make them aware of the problems of Spain, of the importance of Spain as we see it for the U.S., for the United States of America, and the importance the U.S.-Spain relations have for the West in general, and I tell you, for both countries. So, and they understand us better, as I tell you. They're able to understand what the position have been in the past, even the ones that were wrong, and how we can look to the future and understand that Spain is an important country for many issues for the U.S. And as I tell you, for us, it's
you sound as if you're saying that in the United States the importance of Spain is underestimated.
Yeah, I'm going to be bold enough to say so. Sometimes it's been underestimated. At one point, some years back, and because of a series of circumstances, they realized how important Spain was, because there was this change of policies that you've just mentioned. I think they've lost a bit in the horizon of the U.S. foreign policy, where Spain is and what they can do with us together. And of course, it is up to us to show them, and that's the important role of the ambassador here, to show them who we are, what we mean, what we can do together, how much better the interests of the U.S. would be defended through a closer relations with Spain. And again, I think those points are better understood, better seen probably by the Hispanic community.
So, in fact, as the Spanish language community, as the Hispanic community, in this country grows exponentially and becomes more influential politically and to a certain extent also economically, this, by suggestion, opens up opportunities for Spain in this country.
That we tend to see it that way, and we're working on it. The Hispanic community is also a very not a simple community. So
sure.
There's people coming from different areas of the world. There are different generations of Americans that are Hispanics. Many of them don't speak English, so it's not just a question of language. It is true that and future generations have seen the importance of Spanish, so even Hispanics whose Spanish is not good or is not existent are encouraging their sons and daughters to learn more Spanish. But culturally, they're closer to us. As I was saying, we share culture with them, and that's why they understand us better.
There is, the Italians have a program, the Italian government has a program, which actually finances the teaching of Italian in American schools and the training of teachers in Italian in American schools. Is there anything equivalent on the Spanish side?
We have that. We have about 2,000 Spanish teachers teaching in the U.S. right now at the high school level. But it is true that the interest of Spanish has grown dramatically in the last 10 years. I mean, there are more students at the high school and college level learning Spanish as a second language than all the rest of the languages combined, which is, it gives you the importance of the Spanish language for the American students. And then Spain has become the third preferred destination for college students of the U.S. to do the year abroad study after the UK and Italy. So the interchanges are big.
So do you foresee, or would you like to see, a real bilinguality in this country?
I would like to see.
I mean, like
I
Canada,
would like to see a real bilinguality if one of the languages is Spanish in every country in the world. I'd like the Chinese, 1.5 billion Chinese, to speak Spanish. That's not going to be easy. I don't know how bilingual this country can be. I think if it becomes bilingual, wonderful. That'll be the decision. But I think it would be good that that more and more Americans learn Spanish, if only because of the neighborhood with Mexico, and as a consequence, geographically thereof, of the whole of Latin America.
Other than this lack of shortage of understanding, bilateral relations with the U.S. are okay, though.
Bilateral relations are good. I wouldn't say shortage of understanding. What I'm trying to say is that they don't see the possibilities that the relations with Spain have, as we see it and as we're trying to convey to them. But the relations are very good. As I tell you, must have been, we maybe have gone through a bad period recently because of the withdrawal from Iraq and then from Kosovo, as you know. But again, I mean, and you could understand that would have hurt the most at the military level. But at the military level, the relations are very good. The relations between both our Minister of Defense, the Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, went to Spain, and our Minister of Defense, Morenés, came to the U.S. in the last 6 months. He's been here. And we just signed this agreement on the anti-missile defense. So things are good. The military know the possibilities, but I think it's at the larger geostrategic level that we're not profiting from our bilateral relations.
This is the missile shield that was originally destined for Poland and the Czech Republic?
It's a missile defense that was approved by NATO and that also has a naval dimension. Yes.
I see. Oh, this is the naval dimension of that missile shield.
Yeah.
I see. Now, at the moment, unfortunately, Spain is regarded as one of the sick countries in the Eurozone. How do you think they're going to get out. You're going to get out of this.
We've started to get out of it. As you know, the problem with the crisis we had in Euro was that in 2000, in 1999, starting in 2000, we agreed to have a common currency, but we didn't set up all the mechanisms of a common currency. I remember at the time that the former president of the Commission, Romano Prodi, said, we don't have everything set up 100%, but when the first crisis comes, we'll fine-tune everything and everything will be fine. All of a sudden, the first crisis that comes is 1929 or over again, and that has created a big shock. This shock has affected, because of these imperfections that the establishment, the architecture of the euro has affected in a different manner the north from the south, and within the south differently, and within the north also different. So the measures in order to fight this type of crisis, you have to take monetary policy measures, and that is done from a central power in the European Central Bank, and it was affecting us differently. And again, we didn't have the institutions to fight against the consequences of the crisis. After 6 months of many meetings, and I remember and read both at the Spanish and the US press saying, oh, all these many meetings and nothing is being done. Well, finally, we've come up with measures. And of course, in every country there were reforms to be taken. We took many. They've affected in a very dramatic way our unemployment, which we've reached.
Well, in fact, you're living through a very austere period.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. But because of that austerity, all of a sudden people have started to see that the situation in Spain is starting to recover. There's new investments coming in. Our trade balance with the euro area is favorable to Spain. We've had trade surplus with countries such as France, which we had never had before. And now, as
because of tourism and etc., I suppose.
No, this is trade.
No,
trade, not just economic balances. This is the trade balance.
Actual trade balance.
Without taking into account the services. But it has also happened that again, you know, the spread that, as you know, went up dramatically, up to almost 700 points. It has been reduced as of November, December to 300 and some. So that makes it more feasible for Spain to go out in the market and
buy bonds and so on.
Absolutely, and we've been doing it for the last 2 or 3 months in a very successful manner. Blessing. That's it. Investment coming, the trade plus with euro area, investments abroad. It's going to take a while for all that things to have repercussions in the labor market. We've made labor market reforms, which were due since the times of Franco probably, and that we hadn't done, but now we've done them, and our labor market is much more flexible than it was last year. And investors are starting to see that, and that's why capital is flowing back in.
And the mood of separatism that affected some provinces, such as, for example, Catalonia,
well, in
which
Catalonia,
then turned out not to be so enthusiastic about it once the referendum took place.
There was no referendum, there were elections.
There were
Remember
elections,
what happened was that because of this economic situation, there were demonstrations all the time against the harsh measures of the government and the social situation. And at one point, there was a big demonstration, and some of the leaders understood that maybe this was the moment, some of the independentist leaders, to call for a referendum. So they called in elections when they had elections 2 years before. And let me remind you that 2 years before, the president of the government of Catalonia was a socialist, an independentist. So in 2 years, you don't create such a big independentist movement unless you try to convince that we're going to be better off economically once we're out, and then you sell it, you package it in a very nice way, saying we're still going to become members of the European Union. Our relations with Spain are going to be excellent. We're going to keep on investing in Spain. Everything is going to be fine. Even with that presentation, the leader who decided to call on the elections lost. He's still the president of the government. I think he's still with the idea of calling for a referendum. Yes, now he's making a referendum that's not legally binding. Right. So it's again a bit of playing politics with the idea. But basically, I mean, and this is my personal belief and conviction, Catalans are Spanish. They've been Spanish since, I don't know when, since Spain was created. There's a distinct Catalan culture, of course, which is appreciated by all, if not, or most, if not all Spanish. There might be some that don't. And we all have Catalan friends, and then the people from one region that go to Catalonia and become, the second generation becomes Catalan, and the other way around. Catalans that go to other region, and the second generation becomes extremeños. So I don't think it's going to gel as a truly independentist movement as it has happened in other countries, and I think the thing will pass. And if, frankly, we manage to overcome next year the economic situation and we start creating jobs, and all of a sudden they realize that the recipes or the programs taken, the projects, the measures taken by the central government in Madrid have been good, the argument that we're going to be better off without Madrid than with Madrid is going to disappear.
There's also some question as to whether there would be a natural, whether if this happened, there would be a natural progression of them into the European Union as members. I mean,
as a first step,
Scotland is going through the same question.
As a first step,
do you automatically become a member?
No, automatically.
Do you have to get back in line?
Yeah, absolutely. They have to be accepted by the rest of the member states, so
which is a whole
that they know. I don't know how long, if if they do, how long that would take, and in the meantime, what are the measures you take? What are the economic measures you take at the borders? Do they still keep the euro? They don't have the euro. Do they belong to Schengen or they don't? Who are they control the borders? It's a very complicated issue, and of course, these are matters that touch on sovereignty, and countries want to have a say. There's 27 countries, there'll be 27 opinions, and 28 soon.
Can I just ask you a few? You've lived in this country before. You know, the space of what? The space of.
I lived for 3 years when I was
in New York.
I lived for 3 years in Washington. Yes. And my father, as a diplomat, was posted here.
Yes, that's
in 1967 to late 70, early 71. And I went to school, to high school here, called St. John's College, which used to be a military school.
Yes, it used to be a military school, yes.
From the Christian Brothers. And then I was posted in New York from 1991 to 1996 at the consulate of Spain in New York. So all in all, I've lived 8 years. And
so how do you see this country changing over that period? Is it a huge change, or are you surprised at how unchanged some of it really is, given the space of time?
No, it has changed. I think, how would I put it? The basics of the, I don't know how you say it, Americanhood, Americanness, are very much the same. There's nothing to not recognize. You have to think that regarding, now everybody's speaking about this sudden shift to the east, to Asia, the pivot to Asia, as they call it, and this new wave of maybe not, I won't say anti-militarism, because there's not, of not wanting to get involved abroad. But when I was here, I lived the final phases of the Vietnam War, so there was very much that type of much more anti-militarism that now, and people not wanting to get involved abroad. That disappeared, and a new phase appeared again. I think there's still the clear conscience that this is the indispensable country, the indispensable power, and that entails some measures, some sacrifices, and as a consequence thereof, some advantages vis-a-vis the rest of the countries in the world. It is true that as of late, how do I put it? We tend to see a bit less of enthusiasm for at the people's level when we speak with them about
for
doing
those
things
old
abroad.
ideals,
Yeah, there
yes.
are many. I mean, at the time when I was here, and also in the beginning of 1991, even though the Berlin Wall had already fallen, there was a clear good and bad type of situation.
Yes.
Now that's not that clear, and that there are many little places where they're not good people. I will say there's the old bad for the perception, and people are we going to get involved in everything?
Right.
And that type of thing is sort of disappearing. Before it was, okay, we have a very clear idea that what is just, what is not unjust, and we're going to fight injustice no matter what.
So is this a reassessment of America's role in the world? Is it taking place, or has it taken place? I mean, you do hear this phrase, America's role in the world, a lot these days.
Yeah. You do hear it. I think people are rethinking it, and I'm not too sure that in general, I mean, when you're the big superpower in your conscience that you are, it's difficult to say, this is none of my business.
Right.
No matter how far it is. Because the world keeps on being smaller and smaller every day. And this is what's the name of the title of the book of Secretary Clinton, the something village?
Oh, it takes a village.
It takes a village, okay. So it's, this is it's become a village, the world, so everything has repercussions on you, on the people here, especially a country such as the U.S., with people from so many different origins and with ties to their own nations and interests everywhere. Things of interest to that. The thing is how to confront those problems. Maybe the fact that for 20 years you were the sole power in the country once the Soviet Union had disappeared.
Right.
It led you to the impression that, well, it's up to me. I'm the just country, which was true. Our values are better, which I also think, since we share them in Europe, it's also true. But and that doesn't imply that maybe you should get involved everywhere and at any time. And maybe that's something that's changing. Then if you don't get involved, how do you deal with it?
Right.
And that's where maybe the different allies come into place, and that's where, again, the role of Spain could be more important.
Right. Right. Well, and how about your own profession of diplomacy in this context and even outside it? How has that changed since you first put on the uniform?
Well, it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot, but that's because of the revolution in the world of communications.
Right.
And how much more often leaders meet than they did before.
Right.
So, our title is Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the country.
There's not much plenipotentiary.
You're plenipotentiary up to a point, because when it's really important matter, one hangs up the phone and calls the other guy on the other side. So, do we agree on this? Yes, okay. Well, let the ambassador come, and then we'll fill in the blanks for the details.
Right.
So the really, really important issues have changed.
On the other hand,
what is it that we have to do? Set up the stage. Make sure that the messages that can lead to a decision that entails a phone call are there. So in that sense, it's become a bit more complicated. You don't only have to deal with the prince anymore. You have to deal with
course.
all
Right.
the advice of the prince, all the ministers of the prince, all the think tanks that influence the ministers of the prince, all the staffers of the councils of the prince. So it's, you know.
But on the other hand, you also have new equipment to do that, new ways of doing it. I mean, for example, social media. I mean, do you Twitter?
I don't Twitter. We don't Twitter. I mean, the Spanish Foreign Service in general they've decided we shouldn't Twitter. So for the time being, I regret it a bit. I wish I could, but we don't.
But does the embassy Twitter?
No, the embassy doesn't tweet. We don't.
And
we don't tweet.
And Facebook?
The embassy as such, we don't.
I see. Right. Because some embassies, of course,
Some embassies do, and I think it's useful.
ad nauseam. Yeah.
I don't know how far you can reach with it, but it depends on the importance and on the messages and on the issues you decide to deal with.
It also depends on reach. It seems to me that if you're Twittering, you're in fact establishing your own means of communication with people that has nothing to do with the media.
Right.
So you're circumventing the traditional means of communication. You're also talking to an awful lot of people who you've never met in your entire life, of course, which is the most undiplomatic thing to be doing, since this used to be a small club of people who use code to talk to each other, which nobody else understood.
Yeah, because decisions were made at a different level and for
and so, of course, what does this do to the 16th century English gentleman who said that diplomacy means being sent to another country to lie on behalf of
the
your
Republic? Well, it has changed a lot. You don't lie anymore because you're going to be caught in the lie, and this is all a matter of trust. And if you lie and you get caught in the lie, and trust disappears, and there's no way you can be the transmitter of that message because nobody's going to believe you anymore. So.
Yes, the get caught is the phrase, though, isn't it?
Well, and you're going to get caught. I mean, I'm not saying if I were 100% sure that I was not going to get caught, that I would lie on behalf of the Republic,
right.
The monarch in my case, the Republic in the latter sense. But you know you're going to be caught, and you just don't. I used to, when I was foreign policy advisor to President Aznar, there was this club of European foreign policy advisors that we met on a monthly basis, and we spoke, and the basic thing was that you don't lie to me. If you're going to call me to pass on a message to the Prime Minister, which is the only way you can do it, because your ambassador has to be received by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and then he has to transmit it, and you don't know how the message is going to get to the right ear, and you're going to give it to me because I'm seeing him on a daily basis. You just don't lie. And we never lie to each other. I don't know what would have happened if somebody would have lied. I mean, we probably would have kept them out of the club.
Out of the club, yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador.
No, I thank you for coming and giving me the opportunity to speak to you.